Hello, everyone, and welcome to the broadcast. I'm your host, Tammy, and with me, as always, are my beautiful co hosts, Ash and Suze, and as always, our fact finder, Dave. How is everybody tonight?
I am excelente.
You put a spin on it. I am
did.
stellar or even interstellar based on the subject matter tonight.
Ooh, good one.
Tubular. Tubular.
Tubular, dude.
And so for tonight, we have a returning guest. Welcome to Jason from Wiretap Media.
Whoop whoop.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate you having me back on.
Hello. Welcome back, my friend. Welcome back.
Jason, how's things? How's life?
It's busy. But it's good though. As you guys know, I became a dad, so that's been top of priority right now. I got the house
Yay!
still. I'm still picking away on the house and just doing a bit of work in the mornings, and just trying to keep going on with life.
Yes.
Awesome.
Congratulations. Welcome to parenthood, my friend. Welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
The most important job you will ever have.
I think so, yeah.
And you can take some lessons from Natasha Montreal on how to red pill your children.
Yes, she's an expert.
Right.
She is an expert.
Yeah, like I don't know if I need the presser from her, but I can definitely see what she has to say about it for sure.
You got a
Well, she
couple
gave
years,
us some
bud.
pretty good lessons on our last episode. It was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I could imagine.
So we have a very interesting topic for tonight. I thought I would take us down the rabbit hole of the gateway process. And the reason I wanted to kind of talk about this is Ash and I have been talking about this for quite some time. But also we recently had David Icke on for our return episode after our summer break. And some of the stuff that we talked about with him really kind of made me think about the gateway process and kind of how it fits, into life. So I guess, what do you guys know about the gateway process? Ash?
Well, I mean, I'm still kind of looking into things, but basically, like, I read the CIA documents and um, I found it hard to understand at first what they were even talking about with holographics and whatnot. And I know that you're going to kind of get into that for the audience, but um, it was hard kind of for me to comprehend what they were talking about at first. But the more that I hear other concepts coming about, say like simulation theory and a lot of the stuff that David Icke talks about, and even what people are talking about with, say, like psychedelics and uh, what is it?
DMT?
What DMT, yeah. Those types of experiences where we can get outside of our perceptual reality and into a more connected outer like an outer realm outside of our bodies. It seems to me like there's a lot more information out there than I thought at first, where, it seemed to be kind of like woo woo, sort of hippy dippy stuff when I first started looking into it. But I think there's some real science behind it, and not the science, like some actual, like, I don't know. I'm excited to have this conversation because I am all on board with this whole process.
Suze, what do you think?
I know nothing, and I am ready and excited to learn all about everything to do with the gateway process.
She's a blank canvas.
I
Ooh,
am.
lovely.
I
Mold her, Tammy.
Jason.
Yeah, to second what Ash was saying, like this is a lot about how like spirituality and science connect with one another, and like they actually used physics to as proof of work. And I thought that was pretty interesting. I think it's also interesting that the CIA omitted the 25th page of the document.
I
That
have the 25th page.
yeah, I know it was later released
Yeah.
through the Monroe Institute, but they omitted it. That would, I guess, ultimately bring humanity together as a whole.
Hmm.
Um, so the idea of high vibrational frequencies that create shape and matter, and it's really interesting. It's an interesting concept, but it also I don't know. You guys remember that movie Interstellar
Yeah, that's
with
my favorite movie.
with uh with Matthew McConaughey or whatever, and
Hmm.
like he's like talking to his daughter through a bookshelf, and then like he realizes that like heaven is like this sequence of high vibrational energy and stuff like that. And and I think part of this too, that I guess there's an argument that maybe reincarnation is real, you
Mm.
know
Yeah, it
uh,
could be.
because of how they present the information, right? They say that we're here to learn lessons and take those on with us, and we're supposed to build with the people around us. And so that's pretty interesting.
Well, let's see what Grok has to say about the
Fun.
gateway process. So I asked him for a brief. Is Grok a boy or a girl? Do we know? Is he non-binary? Can't
He's
be sure.
non-binary. Non-binary.
Um,
Hey,
so I
hey,
asked
sorry.
I asked Grok for a brief summary of the gateway process. So this is what Grok has to say. So, the gateway process, developed by the Monroe Institute in the 1970s, is a method aimed at exploring and expanding human consciousness through a series of audio guided techniques. Here's a brief summary based on the information available up to September 2024. Purpose. The gateway process was designed to facilitate altered states of consciousness, aiming to achieve outcomes like out of body experiences, energy healing, remote viewing, and even time travel. It was part of broader investigations into consciousness, potentially for military intelligence applications during the Cold War. The technique involves using binaural beats and other sound technologies to synchronize the brain's hemispheres, known as hemisync. This synchronization is believed to lead to a state where consciousness can transcend the physical limitations of time and space. Scientific basis. The process draws on principles from quantum mechanics, neuroscience, and theories of consciousness. It posits that reality might be holographic projection where human consciousness can interact with an infinite energy field referred to as the absolute outside of space-time. CIA involvement. The process gained significant attention after a 1983 report by U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel Wayne M. McDonnell was declassified in 2003. This report explores the gateway process's potential in intelligence gathering, suggesting it could be plausible from a physical science perspective. The public perception portion. So, over the years, the gateway process has been discussed in various contexts, from scientific curiosity to New Age spirituality, often linked with ideas like the law of attraction or as a method for personal growth and exploration of consciousness. And then there's a little bit more that's just about current interest, but it's not that interesting, so I won't get into it. um, so that's kind of a brief overview of it. But basically, the CIA got their hands on this and they were starting to do experiments with it to see if they were able to kind of infiltrate other countries through like astral projection, remote viewing, and all sorts of different things. And I've read and watched a lot on this, probably over the last year or two. And some of the stuff I've read is pretty incredible. They did do an experiment where they had computers that they'd put somewhere on the other side of the world, and they had put numbers on the computer screens, and each of the agents had to remote view the numbers, and they were able to do it with it was like very, very crazy accuracy. So I definitely think there's something to it. It has really made me rethink kind of what I've been taught, I guess, about not God. I believe in God, but what we've been kind of taught in terms of religion, and it's really kind of opened my eyes into it potentially being more of an indoctrination with the religious component of things. Again, I believe in God, and actually, I think reading through the gateway process made me believe in God more. But I also, I guess, to play devil's advocate on this, I do have some skepticism, I guess, just because of the CIA's involvement in it.
Mm.
Well, sure. That makes
Right?
sense.
Sorry, go ahead. Somebody was going to say something.
Yeah, I think I think that's reasonable, but I think it's could also be seen like if we're talking like if they're using it for self-serving purposes, like astral travel and spying and that sort of thing. But let's really look at how it's being used today. And I know Dave is going to pull something up on this. Because I think he has mentioned it before, is like they really talk about frequency and vibration of sound, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if we look at today's music, dubstep and these sorts of things, how do we know? Just because, as we talked before, CIA's had their involvement in Hollywood and the music industry. And how
No,
do
have they? Did
we,
you just say that?
yeah. So how do we know that they're not using these frequencies and vibrations to put us off kilter? You know what I mean? So that we're not connected and so that we are like just a negative force. And, we're seeing like, one thing that always puzzles me, and I'm sure puzzles the rest of you. And I think, you look at Mark Gerritson's comment as an example today, how they just blindly omit the truth. And there's people that actually believe what he's saying, even though he's lying right to his audience. So is that part of the frequency process? I think that's something we need to ask ourselves.
Sorry, I missed what did Mark say today? What is he talking about?
Oh, he's just, he basically refuted all evidence that his party is, no longer wanted. And he said that Canadians don't want an election. Meanwhile, like all the polls are saying
Oh,
otherwise.
Yeah.
It's just, but the weird part is if you go look at these liberal pages, like they actually believe this stuff.
Yeah.
Like, and like I try to wrap my head around it, like, and try to make sense of it. And I believe that it has something to do with like, this vibration and frequency that we may be like our brain waves are almost attacked, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. And we know now that there's things that can be done to lower your vibrations. So things like alcohol, smoking, even I know people aren't going to like this, but even smoking weed can all lower your vibration. And listening to certain types of music can either heal you or they can have the opposite effect. Look at things like the water experiments with Dr. Emoto, where they were saying kind things to water, and then they were doing the same but saying awful things to water. And then when they froze the water, the ones that had kind things said to it, they froze in these beautiful pictures, or like these beautiful crystals. And the ones where it had awful things said to it froze in, it actually turned like a brown color and froze into these awful, disgusting patterns. Like, so we know that vibration and frequency is a thing. So I don't think it's far out of the realm of possibility to assume that they're probably attacking us all the time with this stuff.
so then why is it that some of us are not being affected by it?
Good question. And honestly, I don't know. That's something I have wondered for years and years and years. I've had that question even since COVID, Because why did some of us just have this deep seated knowing of we didn't want to do it, and others were just like, okay, I'll just go and do it? Like, what is the difference? I don't know.
Indigo children. I
Yeah.
think we've said that before.
So just to tie in what Tammy, what you said about like sorry, about like smoking, alcohol, weed, stuff like that. So are you saying that somebody who partakes in all these things would be more subject to falling for or being brainwashed, etc.?
No, so that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is it's known that it lowers your vibrational frequency. It's not to say I don't know how the brainwashing works, to be honest. I just know that doing things like drinking and smoking weed, stuff like that, it can lower your vibration. But whether or not that has anything to do with brainwashing, I don't know. This is just speculation on my part.
Gotcha.
So I think something that it could do is just bog your system down. So
Yeah.
instead of firing on all neurons and really kind of being at its peak performance, when you drink or when you smoke or even if you eat crappy food, like think about how you feel sometimes after like you eat a meal probably shouldn't put in your body, and
100%.
just how
like a Big Mac.
sluggish you are. Yeah. And so I think what it does is it just doesn't allow us to perform at our best within our bodies. And I think Tammy, when you were saying like you're a little bit skeptical because of the CIA's involvement, I'm I was there for a little bit, but I'm thinking about it differently now because why wouldn't they want to find out as much as they could? So yeah, I'm sure that there are operatives who are trying to invert what they've learned for the masses, so that we don't
Mhm.
achieve what we could potentially achieve through, if we were acting optimally to achieve what we could through these processes. I think that whole thing of like what we talked about from, I think it was like episode number 2, right? Just keep us fat, sick, and stupid, so that
Yes.
our bodies aren't optimally acting in a way that would allow us to reach that high vibration.
Well, and they keep us angry all the time too, right? So we're
And
constantly fighting
fearful.
about something. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
angry, fearful.
yeah.
Yeah, and you had a much better way of saying that than I did, so thank you, because I think you're bang on with that. Um, I was going to say something and now I forget. Oh, I do. I remember what it was. What I meant with the CIA's involvement is okay, so we know that there's many ways that, according to these documents, that you can achieve enlightenment, or astral project, or all the different things that they talk about doing in this. What I don't trust in regards to the CIA is those specific tapes.
Right. And I agree with that for sure, because I actually wonder if they were able to use that as sort of an MK Ultra experiment where they brainwashed the people into thinking they saw the computers, but they actually didn't
Right.
astral project.
Right. And
Ah.
so this is what I question. I question their involvement in the entire process, in terms of they've now allowed these tapes out into the public, and we don't know what those tapes do to us when we listen to them. And I will say I've listened to
Mm,
tapes 1 through 3.
mhm.
Um I did not like the feeling that it gave me, and I stopped listening to them after that.
So do you think that there's a possibility that they purposefully release this document to kind of add value to this new age religion and take away from like standardized religion like Christianity and that sort of thing? Do you think that's was their angle?
So,
Mm,
I actually don't, and the reason that I don't is because they do address that in the documents, where they say that they don't believe that if the public had this knowledge, that it would really impact their belief systems. So I don't think that was really it. I truly think the CIA was like messing around and trying to, remote view and do all sorts of weird things to other countries. But I just doubt what they've put on those tapes, I feel like it could have, like what Ash said, it could have been like more of an MK Ultra deal where, oh, people are gonna, find out about this and then they're gonna want to listen to this, and you don't know what that stuff is doing inside of your head.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Something else that I've been wanting to kind of talk about when we went down this rabbit hole was Dave, when you brought up Gnosticism and the Great Fire of, in Alexandria, the library that went up in flames, and all of the Gnostic literature that was lost at that time. And
Yep.
I really strongly think that that same sort of information somehow ties to this, what we can do through the gateway process. So, Dave, like, I don't know if I didn't tell you I was going to get you to bring this up or anything, but I don't know if you can kind of give like a little bit of a background of that, what you were talking about during your podcast there. But I'm just very fascinated, and I do think there's some sort of a connection.
Well, yeah, you did cover that part, and then I guess the Gnostic thing, where the way you just described it, can kind of be overlooked. And just fast forward to the David Icke bringing up earlier while he was on the show a couple weeks ago, and what he spewed out about this whole thing having to do with Robert Monroe and whatnot. He did it pretty fast. So if I can, I'm going to slow it down as far as what David Icke was talking about over there. So he was talking about the gateway process coming from Robert Monroe from the Monroe Institute, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this character here wrote a book called Journeys Out of the Body in 1971, right? So in this book, he describes himself using the process and whatnot. And he used it for something like 30, 35 years. And what he uncovered as far as the part where he traveled into other dimensions, like what he called the fourth dimension, were reptilian humanoids that they called the alligators.
Dun dun
Like, so
dun.
like other people, here, let me bring this shit up. So other people started seeing these things as well, where like the fact like the group that was using the gateway process had to give these people a name, which ended up being the alligators. And then what they learned from these alligator fellers, and Ike mentioned this as well, was the nefarious vertebrates have controlled and enslaved humanity for millennia. They exist and operate in the fourth dimension and are only visible to individuals who can see beyond our extremely limited spectrum of visible light. Reptilians feed off our spiritual life force, which Monroe called loosh, which we will come to in a second. So the loosh thing is the vibrational stuff that Tammy was talking about, and getting into like the emotions and the negative. We'll get to that in a second. These parasitic entities see Earth as a massive farm where they harvest human fear, hatred, anxiety, anger, and depression. So more of that stuff you were talking about. I guess the alcohol and the weed can lead to that stuff, which is how that probably factors in that way. Their intelligence equal or superior to human beings, and this elusive lizard-like race sees itself as superior and rulers of mankind. So then if you go to what loosh is, loosh just usually means energy harvested from emotional responses. So then when you track that down, this is why I think the CIA actually was after this tape and not the reason they told us. So I think they wanted access to this so they can go looking in this dimension for these people.
So they do outline in that document that the likelihood of meeting darker entities through this process is very high.
Yes.
Right. So then if you go back to the hemisphere aspect of this this gateway process, it talks about left brain, right brain, and then whatever, melding them together or having them sync and whatnot. If you go to something that's called the R complex that we have, the brain's R complex structure, which is also called the reptilian brain that every human has.
The amygdala.
Right.
Huh.
Mhm.
So I think they wanted their hands on this tape to do research on those people. This Monroe character figured out on his own what you guys were talking about, and a lot of people have just put in their own words as far as the vibrational frequencies of negativity and depression and anger and stuff like that is what these things feed on and what keeps them going. So just think about like what's happening in the world today with like the Diddy arrests and the child trafficking. That's one. Like you guys earlier posed the question about how come some people don't get affected by it and whatnot. Well, the way that we responded with anger and frustration and stuff towards the people doing the COVID restrictions on us is still a way of feeding this thing.
100%.
You know
Mhm.
what I mean? So
Yeah.
just because we didn't fall for being, or like quote unquote fall for the quote COVID trick, we fell for pretty much wishing horrible things on the people that did this to us. So that's where my head's at.
No, I think you have something there, because I think we're all guilty of like feeding into like the anger aspect of like what's been happening. Like it's obviously become progressively worse in the last like 5 or 6 years, and it's so noticeable now. But yeah, I think you're right about that. Like I think we do feed into that. Um, the whole reptilian thing, I got to be honest, man, like that's where people lose me, right? Is that like these videos of people shape shifting on TV and shit like that. Like that could easily be like a CIA op, right? Is that they put out these videos, fuck with their eyes, and then like have people running down rabbit holes. And so but I do believe that there's multiple species, and whether these entities are one of them is another thing. But for human beings to take that shape or whatever, like until my perspective is until somebody shape shifts in front of me, I'll never believe it.
But I don't think that's, and I could be wrong. I don't think that that's what they were saying with what Dave was just reading. I think they were saying they saw these so-called reptilian people when they astral projected. No,
Yeah,
like in the
that
astral realm, not in the human realm.
Right.
yeah. So I believe, like I said, I believe they could exist, and because I do believe in, I think we'd be ignorant to believe that we're the only race in the entire universe, right? Like human
Yeah,
beings are
sure.
the end all be all. But what I'm saying is where it gets lost for me is the shape shifting part, right? Is when it's starting to be introduced into our society. And like this strengthens my position now that Dave has read that, is they could very well be connecting with these beings on a from a unconscious level. But what they're doing then is they're manipulating society in believing that these creatures actually are taking people's like their bodies, and you know what I mean.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
I'm not on board with that portion of it. I can get on board with the seeing them in the astral realm, just not here.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. Like I think that that's quite possible. There's good and bad in everything. Even in all of us, there's good and bad, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we're constantly fighting that. But I think it's interesting that there is a connection between that. So now back to, I do have a question for Dave about the Alexandria library burning down. Do you believe that this has all been uncovered before, and this was their way of wiping it out and pushing people towards Christianity and Catholicism?
Yeah, I think it just reads to the victor of history gets to write the history. So, if you really wanted to get people subservient to you and install your divide and rule agenda, religion would be a great way of doing it. So, if you had Gnostic texts that pretty much stress you being able to find God within yourself and not having to rely on just like this entity where you have to follow these 10 rules and show up to pray on this day and not
Yeah.
eat on that day, well then people wouldn't really have something strict enough to follow that where they could execute this agenda. So they had to burn books that would feed people the possibility of that being a way of life.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I think like I've been digging a lot more into like the Soviet communist era, Lenin's Red Terror, and it's absolutely frightening the path we're going down. Now that you know more, and you're kind of looking at everyone's story instead of just what they taught us in school,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
it's become so frightening that you know, I just see how now. Okay, so let's kind of pivot here, because like let's talk solution here. So how do we use this information, knowing that that there is a possibility that frequency can alter your mood and your behaviors? How do we do that to bring everybody together?
Well,
Because like,
okay, I
go
think
ahead.
that's yeah, that's like a really excellent thing to be asking, because I think that so many of us are bogged down by negative energy, whether we feel like it's useful because we're fighting, we're resisting, and we feel like we have a purpose. Definitely, the negativity in my life is has taken over more than ever before. But I think it's useful. But I think you're right to ask, like, what can we be doing to, promote this higher frequency, this more positive frequency than kind of what we're getting fed into, like Dave said about, like how it's almost like we're falling into their plans anyways, even though we're
Mm.
part of the resistance. And something that I kind of wanted to bring into this whole thing is the idea of chakras, because I think that's still very ancient wisdom that, in my mind, is talking about the same sorts of things, where you have your different chakra points within your body, and that's how you can kind of reach a higher frequency by, channeling those energies.
Okay, I
Yeah.
need to say something quickly because my mind is blown right now. And the only reason why I was with a friend all day today, I did not even tell her what we were talking about on this episode tonight. And she is so into like energies and chakras and unblocking this. She spoke to me about this for like a good 2 hours today. And here y'all are talking about everything she said to me.
That's
So
awesome.
my mind is blown
Boom.
right now. I just texted her and I was like, girl, holy crap. Sorry, carry on.
I love this.
But that's
But I think,
synchronicity too, right? Like, that shows
Yeah.
that you're
Yes.
kind of on a path that's leading you towards something good.
yeah, I second that. I think that's like I'm a firm believer there's no such thing in coincidence, right? Uh
Mhm.
Yeah, I
like
agree.
Mhm.
I
Agreed.
believe that if you really pay attention, the universe gives you messages.
Yes.
Mhm.
And whether that's from other people, or even some stranger on the bus, or even if it's like you're driving and you see a billboard and there's something related to what you were thinking about. I always believe that
Mm.
the
Yep, even
universe is.
animals, if you have spirit animals, or they're supposed to signify different things. And if you pay enough attention, certain animals show up. I mean, of course you're going to see freaking seagulls in Toronto. Like, no doubt, right? Or if you have a dog, you're going to see
And
your
rats.
dog a lot. But if you start paying attention to some of the other strange animals that will pop into your life, and I have a spirit animal book because I just think it's super interesting, and it's kind of crazy how often they actually mesh up in some way with what I'm dealing with, or what I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah, I pay attention to that a lot too. Like I go for my walks every morning with the dogs, and I go down the old railway line here by where I am, and it's just like it's more or less a nature walk. And right before Scarlett was born, I was seeing red cardinals all the time, and which is not something you
Aw.
know I saw a lot, and like they represent change, right? Like they're
Mhm.
like big changes are coming, like be prepared, like that sort of stuff. And it's just more or less messaging. But yeah, I pay attention to that weird stuff too. I think it's important. Like I think that they run on their own frequency and their own vibrations,
Mhm.
and
Yes.
you know even seeing like just being an observant person and watching my newborn, and when she's lucid and paying attention and stuff, like, well, I don't even know if she's paying attention to me, but she's always looking over my shoulder or around past my face, and I'm wondering, like, what's she looking at all the time?
Mhm.
I'm like, what is she looking at? Like, is she looking at something I don't know that's there? Or is she looking at my energy? Or,
Yeah.
it's just, it's an interesting, and there is this, because children, haven't developed all their senses yet. They rely heavily on their intuitive senses, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
it would be interesting to know that, what she may be seeing, or, I don't know.
Yeah. My dog
Well,
Homer used to always look over my head and around, like up, kind of like I always thought it was my aura. And even my husband would see him doing this, where it's, I don't know, like he was just always, he didn't do it to everybody, just me, where he would just kind of like his eyes would wander up above. So I don't know. I always thought that was interesting.
Blue loves to look at the sky for some reason. He'll just sit there and look at the sky, and I'm like, and I look up and I'm like, there's nothing there. What are you looking at?
It's the aliens.
I'm like, what is it? Are they coming? Are the aliens coming? Finally.
he's practicing the C5 protocol.
That's what he's doing. Okay, got it. Well, he
Good
needs to
boy,
hurry up
Blue.
because
Yeah.
failing. He's failing. They haven't arrived.
and and Dave, I hope I didn't like insult you with the reptilian thing. Like, I do believe in your premise, and I'm open to learning. So if you have information that can refute what I said, please pass it forward. I know that you're way in depth with this secret society stuff, and your channel is, pretty wild. So if you have anything you want to toss my way, to kind of maybe alter my perception on whether reptilians actually walk amongst us, I'm open to it, dude.
Oh, you
So
want him to give you a perception correction?
Oh, I
it
was
wasn't.
totally gonna say that.
So like the concept, and like even like where, let's say if it originated with Ike, or in like a lot of people, for them it did originate with Ike. He doesn't actually like think or say where like that person mutated into a reptilian in front of me, and he's never the one posting like those videos that you mentioned where like the eye glitches or whatever. So he explains it like in his recent 2 books, I would say. Kind of, again, he's kind of like revamped his explanation, especially with this taking into account this Robert Monroe stuff. And it's just like he explains it more like what they saw in that 4th dimension during that gateway process stuff. It's like it glitched in while someone was not doing that thing. It just happened to be at the right place, right time, where they actually ended up experiencing what those people experienced while they were focusing on doing that whole gateway process. But they happened to glitch, and the entity happened to glitch in right at the right time, and the person just saw that reptilian looking thing that those people would see while doing the gateway process, and just like this anomaly glitch that rarely happens.
Oh, interesting. So do you think that like there is some truth to like the Book of Enoch and those older religious texts that aren't really taught anymore about like fallen angels and like the interbreeding with humans and stuff like that? Do you think that there could be a possibility of truth to that, knowing that there's other universal energies that are interfering with uh, with us, you know what I mean, through energy and that sort of stuff?
Yeah, like a truth, or I would even say a purpose, again leading back to whoever wins a war or controls society gets to decide what goes in the books, just in the sense of how similar the stories are across all the religions and all the cultures through any given time, as far as, yeah.
You know what's interesting though is they all connect back to astrology,
Right.
Mhm.
which is like one of the oldest forms of spirituality, right? And that's
Mhm.
what one of the things and if you look in that gateway process document, they do mention in one of the images Taurus. So it's
Yeah.
like it's pretty interesting. The whole like 12 disciples, 12 zodiac signs, the son of God, the zodiac signs ruled by the sun and the moon. And you have your good and your evil, your yin, your yang, all that kind of stuff. So and even in like and this is going to sound like super nerdy or whatever, like the tarot deck, right? The tarot deck is like, there's the upright meaning of the card, but then there's the reverse meaning of the card, which is the opposite of what that represents, which is the yang version. And that's like all of us, right? Like that's
Mhm.
us these people too. So it's this is such an interesting like, I don't even know if we have enough time in a day to talk about something like this. This is
We absolutely do not.
No.
yeah.
But
We always trench down the spirituality route, and we kind of steer away from the CIA, which is good because those bastards creep me out. But
yeah, me too. What it's funny though, like mentioning the religion thing, because I've now thought for a long time that the different religions they all have like points, as you were saying, where they kind of, it's almost like they're telling the same story but in
Yes.
a different way. And I have started to think for a long time that it's almost as though they, as they like, I don't know how it all worked in the beginning, but it's almost like they were all in one spot and saw something, and then as they kind of went their own separate ways, they were trying to find a way to teach the new, like, the new people in their tribes what they knew. And over time, it's like a big game of telephone, and it's all like the same story being told in a different way. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Yeah, for sure. And even the metaphor that would be used in one area wouldn't be relevant in another. And so you get like a different type of metaphor that would be, over time completely conceptually different than what it
Right.
maybe was when it was first used.
Exactly. And I do want to go back to the gateway process for a second, because I want to just quickly talk about the ways that you can achieve this, because I think that's important with the CIA portion of, kind of why we don't really trust their version of the gateway process, but why it would be interesting to trust maybe the other means of doing it. So
Mhm.
one of the ways, or one of several ways you could achieve this, I'm just going to say enlightenment for lack of a better term, is through hypnosis. And so how that kind of works is and this is the way I understand it. So if anybody else, disagrees or has a different way of saying it, cool, just jump in. Hypnosis basically tells your left brain to shut up. So your left brain is kind of your reasoning side of your brain. And it basically, when you see something, hear something, whatever, your left brain kind of makes logic of it and then decides whether or not it's going to allow your right brain to hear that. And
Hmm.
hypnosis knocks down your left brain's ability to be that center of reason. So the message basically goes right to the right brain. And your right brain is like that dreamer that is just like, I can do anything. And so that's how the hypnosis portion kind of works. But you can get through the gateway process using hypnosis. Another way you can do it is through transcendental meditation. So, this to me, Ash, sounds a lot like the chakra stuff that you were talking about. It
Mhm.
focuses on drawing energy up the spinal cord,
Yep.
and it creates acoustical standing waves in your cerebral ventricles, and then that's conducted to the gray matter in your cerebral cortex. And so and that also goes to the right side of your brain. So that's another way of achieving this. A third way is biofeedback. So biofeedback is, I guess, again, it's similar to hypnosis, where it can suppress the left hemisphere, kind of like in hypnosis. So it's just a different way of kind of doing that. And then you get to the gateway and hemisync, and that's where the CIA got involved. So the hemisync is using things like binaural beats. Basically, how it works is, say you're listening to 100 hertz in one ear and 120 hertz in another ear, your brain will hear the difference. So it'll hear the 20 hertz in between. And it depends on, what hertz your brain hears as to how your brain will react to that. But that's basically how you can astral project with the gateway hemisync. The danger with that one, as we were talking before, is we don't know, what are they putting into those, maybe that we're not hearing, or something like that. But there is a lot of different binaural beats that you can listen to, or healing frequencies that you can listen to, even on YouTube. Now, whether or
Mm-hmm.
not it would throw you into kind of the gateway process, I don't know. But they do exist out there. And then the last way, oh no, sorry, second last way, is lamp versus laser. And this one, I don't really understand this one exactly, but I'll just kind of read what they say about it. So the metaphor that they use is that the human mind in its natural state may be likened to an ordinary lamp which expands energy in the form of both heat and light, but in a chaotic, incoherent way which diffuses its energy over a wide area of rather limited depth. On the other hand, the human mind, under the discipline of hemisync, acts after the fashion of a laser beam, which produces a disciplined stream of light. The stream of energy is projected with total coherence of both frequency and amplitude, such that the surface area of the laser beam contains billions of times the concentrated energy found in a similar surface area on the sun. Gateway assumes that once the frequency and amplitude of the human brain are rendered coherent, it's possible to begin accelerating both, so that the human mind is soon resonating at ever higher vibrational levels. The mind can then bring itself into synchronization with more at these increasingly rarefied levels, is assumed to be capable of processing the information thus received through the same fundamental matrix by which it makes sense of ordinary physical sensory input to achieve meaning in a cognitive context. And then the last one is frequency following response. So this is kind of what we were talking about earlier, to do with the vibration of things. So vibration actually can affect you to the point that if you were, and they actually talk about this in here, that if you were sitting in a car and it was vibrating at a certain way, it could actually throw you into what's called like a kundalini experience,
Mm-hmm.
which is pretty interesting. So there's all these different ways that this can happen to people. I do believe this.
I do too. Like, is anyone here like practices meditation like within their daily routine?
I don't do it daily, but I do try to do it as much as possible.
Okay, so like one of the techniques that I use personally is I don't sit when I meditate, I lay down, and like I put one hand on my heart and one hand on my diaphragm, and I do the 10 deep breaths. So that's all part of like connecting your heart rate, right? Slowing your heart rate down. But
Mm-hmm.
then I imagine like this umbilical cord from my tailbone, and I imagine it just like peeling and latching on to the core of the earth, which is like it talks about like that's all about the grounding process. And when you talk
Mm-hmm.
about lamp laser beam, like where I incorporate so I try to focus with my third eye. So I don't look with my eyes closed. I look with the center of my forehead, and that's where I know when it becomes hyper focused. So like a laser beam, I know that I can reach that meditative state. And then I'm not successful at getting signs and symbols all the time, but I do get them from time to time. And it just like scenarios will run through my brain, in these sorts of things when I'm in this state. So it's interesting that what you explained, like unknowingly, I implement like three of those techniques minus the sound stuff, right?
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But what I don't trust is again what you were saying with the MK Ultra mind control stuff is if they know that these sounds or these audio tapes or these audio can control your perception. It's hard to trust that they're not fucking with your head, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right. Right.
So I get where you kind of went off on that, is that you don't deny that this process is real. What you're concerned about is that somewhere in there that the process hasn't been manipulated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. And they've never done anything good. And so in terms of like me leaving my body, I'm not about to trust them with that.
Yeah. Thanks very much.
Yeah.
Right.
But I've read through these documents over and over and over again, and um I remember the first time I found them and was reading through them, and I just was so blown away, because for me, it proved that there is, I mean, they call it an absolute, but we call it God, and it proved that to me. But I just don't believe that we're being told the truth about, necessarily who God is, or how she, whatever God is, operates. And I was brought up like going to church, and I went every Sunday up until, I guess, in my 20s. And you're always kind of taught that God is this big mean judge, but he's all loving, but he'll send you to hell in an instant. And that has never really made sense to me, and I'm sure a lot of people aren't going to like that, because there's a lot of religious people out there, and that's cool. We can all have our own beliefs and still get along, so let's not do like the loosh thing with this. um But it really made me start to question everything that we have been taught in regards to what and who God is. Um, it really gave me hope in terms of, lost loved ones and stuff like that, maybe they do exist. And you guys were talking about signs a little bit earlier, and I'll tell you guys something that happened to me on the weekend. And I can always tell when I'm more in tune with things, or when I'm not as in tune. And Jason, I know like you do the meditation a lot, so I'm sure you're very conscientious of that as well. Like
Yeah,
where
no, I love these stories, so please go. I love hearing when people have these weird experiences that are unexplained.
And I go through phases with this. So like, sometimes I'm really like in tune with it, and I've been grounding, very often. Like I try to do it a few times a day and stuff like that. I even try to do it in the winter time. But I can tell when I've kind of fallen out of that, and I've kind of fallen into the whole loosh thing. So more recently I've been trying to stay out of that, and really like kind of focus. And so I have been trying to sell my house. And before I put it up for sale, I wanted to find a place to go. Um, so I've been looking at houses, and it's just been like the most awful experience, to be totally honest. It has sucked. And on Thursday night, I had a dream, and in my dream, my dad was standing in front of me, and I never dream about my dad. It's a very, very rare occasion. But in my dream, he opened up my hand with his, and he put a dime in my hand, and then he closed my hand with his. And he said, "You'll know it's the right house when you find the dime."
What?
And oh, it gets crazier. So I woke up and I was like, oh my gosh, this is the weirdest thing. And so my dad was a huge believer, for whatever reason, I don't know, but that each person receives little signs along the way, and his was dimes. They were like a huge thing to him. So, anyways, I go to look at this house on the weekend. I It was basically the only time I left my house, because as everybody knows, I really hurt my neck badly, and so I was in a mood. I really didn't want to do it, but I needed to go see this house. And the moment I walked into this house, it felt like home. I can't explain it, but it was almost an exact replica of the house that I grew up in with my dad.
Whoa.
And it is like 150 years old, but everything, the people that have lived in it have lived in it for 25 years, and they have done everything possible to restore this home to the way it would have been in that time, right down to like the original chandeliers. This
Wow.
place, yeah, like you would never find this again. And so I immediately fall in love with this house, and I'm kind of keeping this dime thing to myself. I didn't want to tell my realtor, because what if he throws a dime in front of me? And I'm just kidding, because he actually does listen to our podcast, so he'll know that I'm joking about that. Anyways, I opened up my car door yesterday, and there was a dime on the floor where I was sitting.
Wow.
Huh.
That's dope.
And I do not, so I stow cash away. I do not keep cash with me, especially not change. I hate it. There is not a stitch of change in my car.
That's
Wow.
dope.
The fact that I don't even know how a dime would or could have possibly gotten into my car.
That's pretty dope.
Yeah.
That's just one of, again, that's like a coincidental thing that in the moment, you know, like if you go tell that to a left brain thinker, and they're going to be like, you're a whack job,
Well,
but
but
you're speaking to right brain thinkers. So
here's
I
the
think
thing
that's
about this, though. The really interesting part about this is I actually sat in the back seat of my own car, because I haven't been able to drive because of my neck, and there was a few of us that went. So I actually was sitting alone in the back seat of my car, and this is where I found the dime. I think I've maybe had 4 occasions where somebody has even sat in my back seat in my car, because it's a new car.
Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting.
Hmm.
So
Did you see the dime when you were leaving the house?
no, the dime, I swear there was no dime there when I was leaving the house. Like I'm positive I would have noticed it. It was literally in the center of this mat, and nobody had any idea about it. And then
Interesting.
I opened up my door yesterday, because I had to bring my seats down. And as soon as I opened up the door, the sun was just like, like when a coin like gleams at you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This coin like gleamed at me, and I had laid awake on, what night was it? Sunday night, thinking like, am I making the right choice? How do I know this is the right choice? Like, yeah, it feels like home, but I didn't find the dime. Or sorry, this is Saturday night. Yeah, it feels like home. I didn't find the dime though. Like, I don't know if this is the right thing. All the things that are going through your head. And then to just open up my back door yesterday where I was sitting, and all of this sudden this thing is just gleaming in the sunlight. I was like, what the hell?
That's wild.
Yeah, that is
Wow.
wild. I love that shit. I don't know. I think the unexplained is is just so interesting.
Yeah, I do too. And I do think that there's something to that, or the synchronicities that we experience. Like even Dave and I have had those on several occasions with random different things. Jason, I know you and I have too.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think there's even times where we almost send each other the same tweets or something. Like we're like in the midst of, it's pretty strange stuff.
Mhm.
It's super weird. Does anyone else have any of these stories that they can share?
I actually do. um, so okay, there's no sort of, there's not some big thing at the end that ties everything together, but when we were getting ready for David Icke to come on the podcast, I was like trying to read voraciously to get through like a 700-page book before he came on, because I wanted to be prepared. And one night I had a dream, and I haven't had these dreams in a long time. Like when I was younger, I used to have them all the time, but um, I so when I was younger, I used to get these dreams where this like this crazy like sensation would pour out of my neck, and it was like it's a pleasurable feeling, but it was like so powerful that it kind of scared me when I was a kid. And I think it had something to do with, like, let's say, like, energies or chakras or whatever that would be. But I didn't understand what it was at the time. And so I think I kind of like got scared and started trying to close that off. And so, but I remember vividly when I was younger, like it would happen all the time. And it's been a long time since I've had that experience. Every now and then something like that will happen, but so, like, even if I'm getting my hair cut or getting a massage, I have to tell them that I'm ticklish on that in that area because I'll jump. Like, it's just very, I don't know, it can get sort of like triggered or something. But uh, I I had been reading late into the night and then, fell asleep. And then I had this dream where I went into this like crazy, there was like this crazy dark pixelated vortex, and it was like pulling me into it, and had this like crazy feeling, that same sort of sensation, and it kind of like all this energy went up through my body and out through my neck and like drew me in. And then I was just on this other side, and I had this like crazy amount of powerful energy, and I I don't know why, but I in my dream I'm like, "David, David Icke, you're not the only one." And then I like sent out, it was like I was sending an email with my body.
That's
And it
hilarious.
just like traveled, I don't know. So I mean, I have no idea if he got that bat symbol or not, but I kind of wanted to ask him.
Oh
That's
But
my
that
god,
amazing.
that's funny.
that is pretty wild. Yeah, no, that's cool. Has anyone ever had a legitimate out of body experience?
I have
Uh,
not. I have a cousin who can astral travel like it's nobody's business. He's been able to do it since we were kids.
We should have him
That
on.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I'll
I would
ask him
love to hear.
actually.
Yeah, I definitely would love to hear that. I've only ever experienced it once.
on
Um,
on drugs.
no, no, I was
I
sober.
experienced it once, but I was on drugs.
Oh, let's hear your story.
Oh, no, no, no. I don't really remember the details of it. This is so long ago. Um, it was short-lived, but yeah,
You,
it was nothing exciting.
Ash, when you fell in, did you like fall into dream state like immediately? Like when that happened to you, is it like you hit REM right away and you were dreaming? Like was
It's
it like
like it's like a powerful, I can feel like a powerful field that I kind of like, I can even hear my hearing change where it kind of goes like and it just kind of like I'm just like in a different world. Like I have very powerful dreams, not always, and not often in the last few years. But when they happen, they're usually pretty significant. Like there's some sort of message I'm being taught or what have you, and they're very different feeling. And they're very memorable.
that's cool?
Like
Yeah,
like when I wake up, they're very memorable. And like I'll still even feel some of those, like some of the places I've been in my dreams. I can go back to those memories like it's an actual physical place I've been. And it's almost like I can't like smell where I was, but it's that same sort of idea where there's like a memory attached to something, like a feeling. I don't know.
can you control your dream state?
Yes. Yeah, yeah. Like I often, when I'm in those states, I know I'm dreaming, but I know I'm looking for a message. I can definitely, if I don't like what's happening, I can completely change my dream. Like I'll say, I don't like this. I can fly sometimes. I can,
Yeah, I can
like,
do that too.
yeah. So I have a lot of control over my dreams. I can look in the mirror, and apparently you're not supposed to be able to do that or whatever, but um, I have like,
You're like a witch.
yeah.
I mean,
Well, if
that
you ask
guy
some of the
did
people on
say
Twitter, I sure am.
I do have one story. Like it's actually my brother's story, but it was from the moment my father died.
No,
Um,
sure, for sure.
so I was in the hospital with my father, my sister, and my brother and his wife were with us, and my other brother, because he had traveled back and forth from Toronto to Chatham like twice in 24 hours. So he was back at my father's house at the time, taking a nap. Like he had come to the hospital and then he's like, okay, I'm going to go back to his house. I'm going to take a nap. My father had 3 dogs at the time. And when I think I had gone down to like the calf, I went to get food. I came up and my dad's wife was in the hallway calling to me saying like, it's happening. Right. So I came running into his room. I held my dad's hand. Sorry, I might start crying. I held my dad's hand and, he took his last breath. And while that was happening, my sister was trying to call my brother, calling the house to wake him up, like to tell him, like, dad is going, right? And my brother didn't answer. And then when my brother finally came to the hospital, he said, right before the phone started ringing, the dogs were howling like crazy. And
Wow.
then and then when he realized what that phone call was and what was happening in those moments, we wondered, were the dogs trying to tell him something? Because those
Wow.
dogs were like my father's world. Like my father was a dog trainer when I was a kid and everything, right? So we were like, were the dogs trying to tell my brother something in
Wow.
that moment?
That's
That's pretty
crazy.
amazing. Yeah, animals like you they're connected, right? It's
Hmm.
like, yeah, no, I'm well, I'm sorry to hear that, Suze. Like that's
Thank you.
like pretty awful experience. If you're, you know, needless to say, like that's a rough experience, sitting with somebody while they pass. Like, um, you know, did you notice, and I say this respectfully because I sat with my mom when she passed and I sat with my grandma.
Hmm.
Um, did you notice that they weren't even the same person anymore as soon as they died? Like it's just like their whole life force got sucked out of them. They didn't even look like the same person and everything.
Yes,
Isn't that strange, eh?
I
it
noticed that
was.
with my dad too.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just don't even like they just don't seem like it's just a shell of you're like, well, who is this? Almost.
Yeah, it's like their soul is gone.
Oh yeah, for
Hopefully to a better place, but just has completely left their body, and the shell that's left behind is no one that you knew.
yeah. I don't. I'm not sure how I feel about like. I just believe that we just get recycled into new lives. Like I
Mhm,
think
mhm. Yeah.
like this is where the gateway experience ties into into my belief system is that our purpose is to sustain eternal life. So what we need to do is we need to learn to harness that energy and learn that like just objects and what we perceive as materialism doesn't actually exist, right?
Mhm.
And what actually exists is like our energies and our relationships and how we treat one another. And that's what I believe is like, I believe that's how we ascertain eternal life is through like our energy.
Mhm.
Well, it does, like when you think about the gateway process, it does bring, at least it did for me, it does bring a whole new kind of meaning to eternal life because it does kind of let you know we're energy. It doesn't die. So, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
we are eternal.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. There's no doubt. But what I'm saying is I guess where we get to the point where we don't need these shells anymore to,
Mhm.
like I believe like every single person here, even though I've never seen Dave's face, I believe that we've all met at some point or another in previous lives. And there's a reason why we connected now, right? Like whether it's to share in this discussion and whether this discussion touches like even like two or three people, that was the whole purpose of this.
Hmm.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
even if it touches like 500 people, if it, the purpose of what we're doing here and the connection of us coming together is all based off of energy, frequency, and sharing, positive energy. Because this is like one of those things that I think is more positive. I think it's positive that we talk about like our loved ones, and we talk about like our own interpersonal experiences with spirituality. And I think it almost like pisses negative people off. That's why they'd say, oh, you guys are kooks or conspiracy theorists or freaks, or because it actually, they don't understand it, and it actually like it sends them love and they hate it. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
An authority figure never taught it to them in whatever institution they were fucking sitting at a desk at. So they can't,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's that too. Yeah, no, for sure. No, that's yeah. What about you, Dave? I'm curious. Have you ever had an outer body experience or some sort of experience that unexplainable experience?
not really out of body experience, just kind of like what Tammy mentioned earlier, just like sharing thoughts type thing.
Yeah, like a
That's it.
connection.
Nothing crazy, but like I'm also a pot smoker before bed, so I think that's a lot to do with it. Like I've gone through phases of like not smoking weed for 2 weeks and whatnot, and then I start dreaming again. But like as of right now, my chance of having a dream and me actually remembering it is like 5%.
Yeah, pot hugely suppresses the body's
Hey.
ability to dream.
Yeah.
I am a pot smoker before bed, and I at least remember some of my dreams like in the first 30 minutes of me waking up, and then they disappear.
Yeah, and honestly, it depends on the person, right? But there is like very in-depth studies about how it does suppress your body's ability to dream. And oddly enough, when you quit smoking weed, your body actually tries to catch up and fill in all the time it lost.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I listened to a whole podcast about it. It was really interesting.
Yeah, apparently alcohol prevents you from hitting REM as well, which is the
Yeah.
dream state, to capture full sleep. So like alcoholics actually don't get to experience real sleep. Like they're actually, their brain is actually awake all the time.
Makes
Isn't that
sense.
that's
crazy.
fucking could you imagine like that your body isn't getting the proper rest it needs? And
No. Yeah, I work in the restaurant industry, so I encounter those alcoholics here and there, and those are the ones that are like 5 hours into a shift and are just like, "Oh, I'm tired,"
Yeah.
and then we'll finish after 6.5 hours, go drink for 3 hours at the bar, and then come back the next day going, "I'm tired."
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
hmm
yeah.
One of the other things I found really interesting about the gateway process, and I don't know like how much you guys have read into these documents at all, but it actually discusses, I'm sure we've all had these moments where you haven't seen somebody in a long time, and then you think about them, and then they'll call you or you'll see them.
Yeah.
So that's a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a transfer of energy from yourself to that person or vice versa. And it's all based on whether or not you're running like on the same kind of frequency.
That's interesting.
And the other one that I found really interesting that they mention in here too is manifestation, and how manifestation is real.
It for sure is.
Oh yeah,
100%.
for sure.
Yeah.
Like I'm positive I manifested my puppy. I'm not joking though.
But think about too, like, have you ever like manifested negative things in your life too,
100%.
just by negative thinking processes? Like all of a sudden your greatest fear comes to life. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Or even wishes. I mean, I actually really don't like wishes because you don't know how those wishes can be interpreted. And if you're not very selective in your thinking and your wording, you could have a wish come true that was nothing like what you wanted.
That's
a
so
very
true.
good point.
Yeah.
I never even thought about that.
It makes you rethink, be careful what you wish for.
Exactly. Yeah.
The other one too that was really cool that came out of this is the energy bar tool. So they actually reference like magic wands and enchanted scepters and how they talk about how they're part of like folklore and occult practices. But there's kind of history with that, and they do touch on it where it actually comes from hang on, let me see if I can find it here. So the energy bar tool technique involves envisioning a small, intensely pulsating dot of light, which the participant charges in his imagination with enormous energy until it's virtually pulsating. The participant then extrudes the dot into the shape of a sparkling, vibrating cylinder of energy, which he then uses to channel force from the universe to selected parts of his body for the purpose of healing and revitalization.
Well, I think that's how crystals could actually come into play as well. There's different natural crystals like quartz and, well, even diamonds and obsidian, all these types of different natural minerals that I think they can be used to as sort of like conveyances to pass energy through. But I feel like you'd have to be very in tuned with your own energies before that would actually be a thing.
Yeah, and like they do give like different kind of techniques for that, but they also discuss like the living body map, which basically uses the same kind of technique, but it focuses more on colored energy, where different colors do different things. And again, Ashley, I think that
Mm,
goes back to the chakra stuff. And it
right.
says like since colors are the result of differing wavelengths of light,
Different
what
frequencies.
yeah. And so but it does, like, they actually confirm that they were able to heal with these techniques.
I believe your brain has the ability to self heal.
Oh,
Like
100%.
I believe that like obviously there's certain things like I think with cancers and stuff, your mental state plays a big part in your survival as well.
Agreed.
Uh,
Hmm.
but but I still think like in certain situations you do need medical intervention. However, I believe like say if a broken bone or something like that, or like a torn ligament or anything like that, I believe that's something that's a long term heal, like that, that your body just has to repair it. You could expedite that process through focusing your brain on healing it, if
I
that makes
agree.
sense.
Hmm.
Yep.
Manifest that shit. Also, Tammy, I love that you're bringing up the witchery after what we've been accused of being, by the way.
I know. And I knew I was going to bring that up during the episode. And so I was kind of laughing to myself like earlier today when I was thinking about it. 'Cause, like, this is going to be great. Like, just a bunch of witches.
You guys were called witches?
We are witches
Yeah.
now. You
Yeah.
haven't heard?
Oh, I didn't know like what happened here.
We are
Um,
Freemason satanic witches.
yeah.
Oh, is that guy that tagged us all in that
Yes.
post
Yeah.
Yeah.
saying
Yeah.
that
Cause
we
you're
Yeah.
one too. I sent it to
Yeah.
you.
Oh yeah, no, I'm a warlock for sure.
You're
Yeah.
a Freemason warlock
Oh
as
yeah.
well. Yep.
Yeah, no, we're taking over the world one podcast at a time.
Yeah. Um, so the last ones I just kind of want to discuss um, are the travel into the past and travel into the future.
Oh, dope.
Mhm.
So, what it says about travel into the past is all of the preceding techniques are conducted at the level of expanded awareness known as Focus 12. However, the technique of time travel into the past involves further expansion of the consciousness through the inclusion of additional levels of sound in the hemisync tapes. Some of the sound is probably merely an intensification of the basic hemisync frequencies being designed to further modify brainwave frequency and amplitude. Other aspects of the added sound patterns appear to be designed to provide subtle, almost subliminal suggestions to the mind as to what is desired by the way of further expanded consciousness, so as to support the verbal suggestions and instructions also contained on the tape. Even the instructions are highly symbolic, with time being visualized as a huge wheel in the universe with various spokes, each of which gives you access to a different part of the participant's past. Focus 15 is a very advanced state and is extremely difficult to achieve. Probably less than 5% of all participants in any given gateway experience actually fully achieved Focus 15 state during the course of the approximately 7 days of training. Nonetheless, Monroe Institute trainers affirm that with enough practice, eventually Focus 15 can be achieved. They also state that not only the individual's past history is available for examination by one who has achieved Focus 15, but other aspects of past with which the individual himself had no connection may also be accessed. So this is really interesting because have you guys ever heard of the Akashic Records?
Yes.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So my mind immediately went to this because I was like, oh my gosh, if you can access yours and somebody else's, that's very in line with what they talk about in terms of the Akashic Records.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then they also talk about being able to go into the future as well, and kind of the same idea there, but that's in Focus 21 state. And then of course, everybody
How far in the future do they say you can achieve?
The last and most advanced of all the focus states associated with the Gateway training program involves movement outside of the boundaries of time space, as in Focus 15, but with attention to discovering the future rather than the past. The individual who's achieved this state has reached a truly advanced level. Except in unusual circumstances, it's probably not attainable except by those who have conditioned themselves through long application of meditation, or by those who practice long and hard through use of the hemisync tapes for a period of months, if not years. So it doesn't say.
So, okay, so I think all of us can agree we've had a prophetic dream at some point in our lives.
I have them
Definitely.
constantly.
Many.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then, how the hell do you explain that? Like, how is it that, like, you take my older brother, right? He total logical person and doesn't care about any of this shit. He just he would never associate any of his dreams with some sort of, mystical future event, right? So is it because we're more perceptive and more connected? Do you guys think that we're
Um,
given that information?
yes. I think it depends on, how you're vibrating. Like that's what I was kind of trying to say when I was initially telling that story about the dime. Like I can tell when I'm kind of in sync and when I'm out of sync, or in
Yeah.
tune or and not in tune. I think it really depends on kind of your mental state, you know, and what you've been kind of taking in mentally, physically, all that stuff.
Yeah, I think that plays a, well, even just like your eating habits,
Hmm.
everything. I think that all comes down to it. Yeah, no, I agree. That's interesting though, that you can examine your past records, so which means that there is an idea that you have to improve your life, right? You have to learn from your mistakes.
Hmm.
And that could
And
be karma.
yeah,
100%.
absolutely.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I never thought of that.
And I will say too, like since I quit smoking weed just over 2 years ago. I quit smoking over 2 years ago. I quit drinking a year and a half ago. And I can tell the difference in like my intuitive side now versus then is like night and day.
Oh, I bet.
And
Hmm.
how receptive I am just to things around me, to people around me. Um, like I'm a lot more sensitive to things. So I do think that has, a bit to do with it.
I feel like, so I'm kind of on the similar path. Like I still have a beer from time to time, but I'm not anywhere like I was in my 20s. And I've quit smoking dope like altogether. But I feel like, how can I explain this? I feel like my emotions, like I guess, I know that I'm a naturally sensitive person, right? Like in terms of like feeding off of energies, not like sensitive as in in the sense of what people know it as, but more or less like just like the vibrational energies around me. So I do know that I'm sensitive in that way. What I find is when I'm not stoned, or those emotions don't get mixed up with my own emotions anymore, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So like where normally like I would lash out because I'm so confused on how I feel, because there's so much going on around me. I have more control over my emotional state, right? So like, a lot of you guys saw a side of me when that whole thing happened with, what's his name. And, I made that pretty vicious attack on that young lady. I'm not going to mention them, but
Hmm.
you guys saw that side of me. Well, I find that side of me, that, vicious or angry person, is more controllable
The
when I'm
loosh.
not. Yeah, the loosh. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna start calling it. Don't be a loosh, man.
Yeah.
I'll be your loosh.
Yeah, don't be a loosh.
Ever since we did the podcast with David Icke, that's what I say to people now. I'm like, don't let the loosh get to you. Don't do it.
Yeah, so I think that's one thing I have noticed, is that my emotional mental state is a lot better without those things in my life.
Yeah, and I honestly I would agree with it. I just feel like I don't know how to explain it really, but um just more receptive to kind of everything around me, and I have a true appreciate, and don't get me wrong, like I was never like an addict by any stretch of the word, but um I just I feel like I've broken free from something that I didn't know that I needed to be broken free from.
Now, keep in mind though, I think marijuana is a natural, like, herbal medication,
I
but
do too. I do too.
I believe the application that we use of smoking it is the wrong way of
Hmm.
using it. I believe that it's meant to be ingested.
Yeah, I
So,
would agree with that.
Hmm.
because when you smoke it, it goes to your brain. When you ingest it, it goes to your body.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
So
And
I think it's just the wrong application that we use. It's just like opioids, right? If you eat them, it goes to your body. If you smoke it, it goes to your brain. Or
right.
if you snort it, like if it's just the way it is.
One last thing I wanted to touch on, just because we were kind of talking about the dream thing and all of that, and why are some of us more receptive to it? I have a theory, and Jason, I might have told you this. I can't remember, but um, oddly enough, I came up with this when I was stoned. So this a few years ago.
Of course.
um, but it dawned on me one day, I was having one of those stone moments and thinking like, who are we, and how do we stay in this body, and why do we leave this body when we die, and where do we go, whatever. And one of the things that kind of came to me was that I think there is something in our bodies, if we are in fact energy, which we are, but there's something almost like an electromagnetic field in our brain that houses our consciousness and actually holds it in, so that we can't just leave our body. And one of my ideas was that, so how Ashley and I can both control our dreams and like fly in them and look in the mirror and stuff like that. Um, or as an example, people that astral project. Um, Maybe during that REM state, because the gateway process does focus on REM state a lot, and that's basically where everything starts to happen. Maybe during that REM state, that electromagnetic field that holds our consciousness into our bodies, if I was right about that, this is a theory, maybe that kind of slows down at nighttime when our bodies sleep. It's not as active, and so we are able to kind of get out and explore, but it's still there enough that we have to come back.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's a pretty interesting concept.
That's just a high theory, but
I can dig it.
I was just
Yeah.
gonna say I can get
Sweet.
behind that.
Sweet. We're all
Yeah.
into it. I love it.
Yeah. But now that Dave is kind of opened my eyes to this reptilian race. Like more the concept. Like I always just thought it was just this online conspiracy, but I didn't actually know it was tied into this gateway process. Has anyone ever had that experience where you feel like somebody's sitting on your chest and you're choking and you're trying to breathe
Oh, the
and you can't
witch.
breathe and you're screaming and no one can hear you and like and then you're like and then all of a sudden you just like wake up. Has
Yeah.
anyone and like there's an old wives' tale that like there's this demon that sits on your chest.
The witch on
Now
the
I'm gonna
chest.
now like I haven't had this happen to me in like probably about 8 years, but now if it ever happens again, I'm gonna think it's a fucking reptilian. Thanks, Dave.
How come?
So yeah, it's just like so yeah, it kind of creeps me out a little bit. But
My brother used to have that happen to him to the point that he actually thought our house was haunted. And he was
Oh,
too afraid
wow.
to tell anybody because he thought he was losing it.
Oh wow.
oh,
Mm.
I could imagine how he would feel. Like it's pretty terrifying.
Well,
See, for
he said it
me,
was happening
anytime
to him
I-
like every night.
It
Sorry,
happened
go
to him
ahead.
every night.
Yeah, for like months.
Wow.
Hmm. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Wow.
For me, anytime, like I'll explore creepy feelings in dreams, but if it gets too intense or whatever, I just change it. So I would
Yeah, me
never
too.
be able to get to that point where something bad enough was happening that if I wanted to get out of it, I just would.
And I also don't watch scary things. Like I also believe it's what you watch can affect you just as much as like music can affect your vibration and stuff like that. So I
Mhm.
don't watch scary things because I'm a baby, and I do the same thing as Ashley. I just control it. And I've had actually very recently, I had something going on in a dream, and it was upsetting me in the dream. And I was like, I don't have to do this. I can control this. And the whole thing went away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm
I can change my dreams sometimes, but there's been times where and I can't pinpoint and remember what the dream was where I couldn't, and I literally wake up like crying and shaking and like terrified.
I must be a sucker because like I'm just like, where is this gonna go?
Yo, to mess with Jason even more, I think it's appropriate to take a look at this guy again. So this guy was a doctor that created a device that could take pictures of entities in another dimension, and he took pictures of them, and then of course he mysteriously disappeared.
Oh, that shit's dope though.
So here's some pictures that he took. Where are they?
Oh, the Mothman.
All right.
Oh, that's an interesting
There's
one
the
too.
Mothman.
That 100% is the Mothman.
Look at this little Buddha.
And what is this from, Dave?
This is a doctor, like full blown, like not fucking pseudoscience or whatever, just like a mainstream doctor that invented a device or that captures entities or multidimensional beings. So essentially
But
takes pictures of them.
how does
So
he
do you-
know though?
Like he's the one that pressed or did whatever to take this picture.
But how does he how did he create the technology? That's my question. Am I making sense?
Yeah, whatever he studied or whatever has to do with like energy and stuff like that.
It's just like the water cards
Interesting.
patented, but everyone that tries to make one dies.
Yeah.
You know, so that's interesting stuff. That one on the right looks more like the reptilian stuff that people talk about.
Yeah, and there's like a longer video that shows more of the pictures, and there actually is some like reptilian looking ones that are a little too much.
And almost every culture in history, like especially ancient culture, as you kind of go forward from ancient cultures to now, they have some sort of reptilian being that they mention within their culture.
Is that really?
Yeah, David Icke was talking about that.
That's crazy.
So yeah, within every single culture, they have some sort of reptilian beings that they talk about, and usually they're evil.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Well,
And something that I thought was also very, very interesting that David Icke brought up was the fact that what our bodies perceive is so minimal compared to what is actually out there within the different frequencies, right? So our audible frequencies are shit, our visual frequencies are crap, And so like we only see, I think 2% of what visual frequencies are out there. And I mean, even if you think about like a dog, like they can hear so much more than we can, right? So it's an interesting thing to think about how bound we are to our bodies.
Well, I'm pretty sure the gateway process talks about how you can access this. But I guess, again, that's a be careful what you wish for thing, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know, do you want to see these creepy little things running around at night?
I don't think they're little though either.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Just
fair. But
just speculation, but like these things that Dave is showing on the screen right now, oddly enough, my phone was obviously listening to me talking about the gateway process like this entire week with people. And a thing popped up on my phone today that was like news that they found whatever these statues are that Dave is showing, they found a bunch in like the bottom of the pyramids, and they are massive.
Wow.
interesting. So isn't the appendix, isn't this where people come up with this theory too? Like the appendix serves as a function in the reptilian, like in lizards to regrow their tails, but in the human body it serves no purpose. Is there some sort of truth to that? I thought that was like one of the theories, that we may be of reptilian race.
Wait,
Interesting.
what? Say that again?
Yeah, I haven't heard that.
So the appendix, now don't quote me, like look it up. Like the I'm just going off of, something I remember hearing at one point or another. But the appendix in like a reptile, so like in a iguana, access like is what helps them grow their tail back, right? Or a gecko or something like that. But in human bodies, they serve absolutely zero purpose.
Really?
Interesting.
You look it up.
Is somebody Googling?
I found something that says no humans never had a tail, though our distant ancestors did, and we still carry genes for growing a tail.
There you go.
But there are some reptiles, for example, that are not able to regenerate their tail.
That's correct, but that's through evolution, right? So like like now kids are even being born without wisdom teeth because we pull them, right? Because the human body has
This is true. The next generation won't get. I actually only got myself. I only got one wisdom tooth. That's it.
Okay. That's crazy that you brought that up, because I was just with a friend, not this past weekend, the weekend before, and we were discussing wisdom teeth, and I have all of mine. They never came through, so they're just like sitting, hanging out. And she is very much Sue's, the friend that you described earlier, that you have. My friend Crystal is this exact same way, very much into
I'm sorry. Did you just say your friend Crystal?
Yeah.
My friend's name is Crystal.
Okay, that's weird.
Holy shit, what color's her hair?
like dirty blonde?
Okay, not the same Crystal. Carry on.
That is
But what the fuck? Her name is Crystal. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. And so she's like super, super, super into crystals and energy, and she actually does Reiki. She's an amazing human being.
Oh my god, it's like the same Crystal. Anyways, go on.
It's so weird. And her and I have like this crazy connection where like we won't talk for weeks, and then we'll randomly message each other at the exact same time, and it'll be about the exact same topic. Like it's the weirdest thing. But she made a reference the other day when we were talking and said, oh, you have all your wisdom teeth. That means like your pineal gland is good. And so I don't know, because I had never heard that there was a connection between the two, but your pineal gland is like a very important piece to your.
Hold on. You randomly just said this, and look what's on my screen as I'm searching shit.
Stop.
Oh my gosh!
No way.
Right. Tammy, carry on about the connection with the pineal gland.
Well, I don't know what the connection is.
All my wisdom teeth. So does that mean mine is not good?
I don't know. Dave, can you Google and find out?
But this came up as I was looking for more reptilian shit. That's even
You need to ask your Crystal, Tammy. You need to ask your Crystal.
Is the pineal gland connected to wisdom teeth? I don't know why she knows this, but
That's funny.
the mouth body connection. Oh, interesting. I guess it kind of is. So I'll talk to, I think she actually listens to our podcast too. So she's actually my realtor's wife. So they both listen to it. So I'm going to ask her what she meant by that. I did just find something here. I'm not going to do this because it's something on TikTok, but there's a couple videos done that talk about the connection of wisdom teeth with the heart and the pineal gland. And
I have
this
3 of
is like,
mine.
so maybe that's, I don't know.
So
I also
I like
think-
what you're saying because it makes me smarter.
Hey, so what are you saying?
You're dumb, Suze.
Hell?
I also
Shots
think the
fired.
fluoride intake has a lot to do with how intuitive and stuff like that you are. And I will, and Ash, I know you're the same way as this because you bring like distilled water when we have sleepovers.
Yep. Well, it's not distilled water. It's from my glorious lake.
Yes, but you know what I mean.
Filtered
It's not
from
all,
our lake. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not all fluoride water. And I'm a huge like I won't go anywhere without my alkaline fluoride free water from home. So this has been interesting, guys.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I think we need to. Okay, so
Now we have
Dave,
to have an episode on pineal glands and
we
fucking wisdom
should.
teeth.
We should. And I think it would be good to start talking more about these kind of more positive things. Like Dave was saying, this is like we need to find a like we are buying into, you know, the loosh aspect of stuff. And, you know, Jason, when you said that, it would be good to kind of figure out how we can tap into the more positive vibrations. I'm into finding guests and topics that kind of tap into more of the positive stuff.
I like this. We could
Yeah.
deloosh.
We need to deloosh.
Deloosh.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great way to kind of combat the negativity, right?
Yeah.
I think you know, for a hot minute there, you guys were all into the serial killer stuff, and I was like, holy fuck, man, these girls are they must be fucking having nightmares.
Oh no,
like,
I still am.
dark.
Make no mistake, I still am.
Oh, that shit's so fucking dark, man. Like I sorry I cursed again, but like it's dark. It's just
It is, but it's important because there's more to that than just a serial killer, right? And that was I think what we were trying to uncover with that is just that, like, hello, this isn't just like some dude that's killing people for the fun of it. Like, he's probably MK Ultra.
And the odd connections between a whole bunch of them.
Yes, and the trafficking aspect, right? So
yeah.
I don't believe me, I respect the work you girls are doing on it. There's no doubt there, but like to bombard your fucking brain with that, like, or carpet bomb your brain, like wow, like
yeah, I had to take a break. I'm not gonna lie.
it's the kid stuff, eh? Like it's really the kid stuff that gets me. It just tears up my soul because like they're innocent, and any human being, like, just even more now. So like just holding my daughter and knowing she's helpless and that like she needs me, and like, you know, seeing her like little hand grab the tip of my thumb and stuff, it's just like, how could you ever hurt a child? It doesn't make sense to me. I don't know.
Me either.
Yeah.
But now we're looshing.
We are looshing.
And this is the no loosh episode.
Yeah.
We're a bunch of looshers.
Settle down with your loosh.
Okay, so on that note, we've been doing this for almost 2 hours.
Gotta drop a big loosh.
So we should probably call it a night. But before we do that, Suze, our blank canvas, how are you feeling about all of this?
I'm feeling mind blown a little bit just because of all the, connections of things like with the crystals and everything. Um, I got some final thoughts. Leave leave your douche at home.
Leave your douche at
Dude,
home too.
sorry, that's my lack of wisdom teeth talking. Sorry. Leave your leash at home. I'm gonna try, starting a meditation journey, and I'm gonna help my dog Blue do the CE5 protocol because he is needs some help, and that's it. Those are my final thoughts.
Ash, what about you?
Yeah, I'm so excited to talk about this stuff, and I'd really love to have more episodes where we get into this because there's so much that I wanted to talk about, but it's like, don't go down that pathway because it's, you know, that's a whole other topic to get into. So I kind of like held back but made notes that like, oh, we should, have an episode on this or that. So
I love
so
this.
this stuff is very exciting. Jason, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, and I'm so
Yes.
happy for you and your family. Congrats on your new little one, and that's just super super lovely to hear how you all are doing, and the fact that you're a daddy now, and hearing how important it is to have kids now when we need good people bringing up children. So I'm really happy that you're on that journey. So that's amazing. And I guess my final thought would be, everyone out there, stop being a loser.
Stop being a douchey loosh.
Dave, final thoughts from you?
As far as what to fight it and to delucify, I think we need to take a look into natural law theory. I just had it up on the screen not too long ago, but it's got some cool stuff here that a couple of people are preaching, and I don't know, just a couple of traits of it just to mention. Is something like natural law is common to everyone, irrespective of race, gender, and socioeconomic status. Evolves based on its usage, function, and circumstances. Is unaffected by culture, custom, or society. And then just natural law. And I'm gonna go drop a big loosh. Jason, thank you for being here.
Okay, last but not least, Jason, final thoughts, and then tell everybody where they can find you.
Well, first I want to say thanks, Ash. I appreciate that. The kind words, and my final thoughts is I think you guys are onto something about like being a little bit more positive, and keeping that not being a loser, and pushing the positive aspect of life. I think these topics here are enlightening, and I think even those people that aren't connected to spirituality per se, but or connected to any type of organized religion, if you can turn them on to like positive like this sort of stuff, like this positive energy route, I think that there's nothing wrong with that, right? Like there's nothing wrong with turning people onto a positive frame of thought or changing the way they think, because negativity does consume us. And again, I'd like to thank you guys again for having me on. I know we end up burning way past the hour when I'm on, and things just go into all these wild directions, and that's just my creative mind, and thanks for putting up with me.
Awesome.
Always. We
Thanks
love
so
having
much,
you here.
Jason. Yeah, it's always a pleasure to have you on. I think you guys are all right, and in everything that you're saying, and I would also like to go in a more positive direction. I think it's good for your mind, body, and soul. And if what they're actually saying is true about frequency, then it's better for our health to be giving out and receiving those kind of positive vibrations. So instead of letting them harvest our bad energy, excuse me. We should like try to make things better. And I don't know what that looks like, but I'm excited to see if we can maybe try to make a difference. And with all of that said, as Ashley said, don't be a loser. And we will see you all next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.